Hi, everybody. And, since we have a small group here, if you feel like joining in, if you want to pop in and show yourself, you can do that too. We're going to have some opportunities to do some, you can answer in the chat, or like I said, since we have a small group, I'm welcoming people to kind of chime in and help with the presentation, answering some questions and stuff like that, and sharing ideas. So let me do this. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll get started. So just a brief introduction about me and Thrivley. So I live and work in Chicago. I've been with Thrivley for a little over a year now. And we've done some great stuff with IDEA so far this year. So we've done some other webinars. We've done some professional developments. We were at IdeaCon and did a couple breakout sessions there. So it's been a great partnership working with IDEA. So thank you for that, Heather, and your team. It's always been a great time. There is this Google form that I wanted to share with you, and so I'm going to drop this in the chat. And so as we're going through this, if you want to fill this out, feel free to jump in and do that. When you do that, you will be able to get access to a free Classroom Pro license from Thrivley. So just trying to get some information from all of you for that. So I'll leave that in there. And then let's go back into here. Start talking about Thrivley a little bit. And when we're talking about ending the school year on a high note, we're talking about focusing on strengths and well-being. With Thrivley, we always want to start with talking about our mission and our philosophy. So for those of you who don't know, Thrivley was founded on a philosophy that every child has a genius and deserves to thrive. We really want to make sure that every student is noticed, every student is known, every student can make sure that they know their strengths and that they can see this positive vision of themselves. Today, what I want to talk about is just starting with that, right? Being known. And when we're talking about ending the year on a strong note, it's I'm going to give a couple different ideas all the way through and how we can do that. So the first is being known, and I'm going to talk a little bit about our strengths assessment that we have at Thrivley and some other ways that we can get to know our students better and let them get to know themselves. And then how do we connect these passions that students have to their future, right? So we're going to really, we're going to focus in a little bit of that. How do we build good habits and learn life skills, and how we can do that on Thrivley. Another great way to end the year on a positive note is by just getting that increase in student engagement. This is the time of year when people might start to check out a little bit, start counting down the days till the end of the school year between that spring break and end of the year time. How can we also give students their own voice? How can we give them the agency to go out and express themselves? And lastly, to kind of cap it from the being known and knowing your strengths to understanding a little bit about well-being and hope, and how Thrivley has a couple new features that we could show you that you can use to catch on for both of those things. So I want you to think about for a second, what does it mean to be known? We talk about being known at Thrivley, but think about when you're a little kid, like this little kid in the picture, right? What is it? You don't even know who you are when you're little, right? You don't even recognize in the mirror that that's you. Little kids are always doing things that sticking their toes in them. They're discovering their fingers, and they're doing all this great stuff. So how are you known as you grow up, as you become a teenager, and as you become an adult? Well, think about what you're known for. If you want to drop it in the chat or you want to chime in and talk about, what are you known for? Are you the caring person that people come to and they need help? Are you the life of the party? What are you known for? Are you known for being able to do party tricks? Are you known for being a good cook? What are those things that you're known for, and who knows you? The other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about is then, as you're thinking about that, when we talk about it in terms of Thrively, we're looking at how are you known by your strengths? And so we use the Thrively Strength Assessment to pinpoint 23 different strengths. And every student and every person that takes the strength assessment will have their top 5 strengths recognized. So you might look at this list and say, oh, I recognize some of those strengths in myself. I'll look at like, oh, analytical and resilient. A lot of people, resilience and flexibility seem to come up more as a strength that people have found that they've had over the last 2 years, right? That's been really helpful in getting through kind of the mess that we've all been slogging through the last 18 to 24 months. But think about these strengths and think about it in the context of a student. Do they think of themselves in terms of these strengths? How can we help them find out these strengths about themselves? So we have them take the strength assessment, and then we want to celebrate these strengths in the students. Typically, when I ask an 11-year-old or a 14-year-old, what are you good at? They're not typically saying things like, I'm analytical, or boy, am I a compassionate person? I'm assertive. No, they're mostly saying things like, oh, maybe I'm pretty good at basketball, or I'm a good friend, or something like that. So think about these strengths and what they mean to you. And then take a moment to think about a time in your life, a memory that you have when an influential person recognized one of those strengths or skills or talents in you. Can I get anybody to kind of share what, you can unmute yourself, you could chime in, but when's a time that you had somebody in your life, maybe it's a teacher or a coach, something like that? Anybody want to chime in? Or you could drop something in the chat. I think about a time when I had a teacher in high school, the best teacher I had. And not only did he teach English class, he taught a class called Junior Seminar. And it really let kids think. It was unscripted. The first day he walked into class and he said, no one has to worry about it, you're all getting an A. And he said, we're gonna talk and we're gonna explore some things that we haven't probably talked about in other classes. And you're gonna learn a lot about yourself. And I think that was probably the most meaningful class I took all through my pre-college days. So think about that, and think about if that is a teacher that you had or a coach. Think about that, what that meant to you, but also think about that this is something you could be that person to somebody else. I just want to make sure that this is going to work here. Heather, can you tell me when I play this if this sounds okay? I'm not sure if the sound, sometimes it doesn't come through on here. But this is a great little video, just a couple minutes from Karen Pittman about students leading with their own identity. So when we're talking about finishing strong, we really want students to have their own voice. So let's play this, and Heather, chime in if volume's not working here.
I think it's very quiet.
About how to maximize chances that young people are thriving. It's important to let them lead with their identity. Not bury it, but lead with it. Show it off, be proud of it, actually display it, to perform it, to put it up on the stage, to put it up on the screen, to make videos about it, to write poetry about it, so they are really bringing themselves into the room. If I come into a space and I don't trust this space and I don't bring my full self into this space, the behavior that you see may not be a reflection of my competence. It's a reflection of me not being motivated to show you what I have because I don't trust this situation. If I don't have a relationship with you and I don't get to be a little bit more of who I am, you're going to slow down my learning and development by not knowing me. schools and community organizations and families and the overall sort of environment of the community are all playing a role in shaping the experiences and contexts and relationships where learning happens. That basically is what the science of learning and development has told us, that all adults, all settings, all experiences matter. Young people's racial and
So that's a great, it's a great video, and I really like hearing that every time I hear that and like think about it a little bit more. We really get to know, we really need to know our students, and they need to know themselves in order to thrive. Right? So I'm going to jump into the Thrivley platform a little bit here. So let me show you what that looks like as we get into this. Right. 1 second here. Oh, first I do want to show this to you real quick. In addition to the things that we have in Thrively, one of the things when we talk about getting to know students is what's some offline activities that we could do with kids, right? And with our own staff. This is something that we did as a staff, right? We talked about, we all took the strength assessment. We listed our top 5 strengths that we had. And then we talked a little bit about ourselves. This is our own, this activity is we call it the user guide. You can make this as business cards or posters. I love doing this with staff because, you know, you really get to know each other and build up this strong bond with your own staff, but you can do it in class too, right? What are some things, and you could just ask students some things that are important in their lives, yeah? Some things that they want to learn, goals that they have. Or my favorite is this, what I wish people knew about me. You know, if you talk to people and think about how great this is. If you just said, I wish you knew this about me, like, you know what? Don't talk to me before 9 o'clock in the morning because I'm still not awake yet because I need 3 cups of coffee to wake up, right? Or, hey, you know what? The way I prefer to communicate isn't by social media or by email. I'd rather just talk face to face. Why don't you just grab me when we're in the hallway or in the teacher's lounge and or schedule a time to talk instead of just like multiple like emails bouncing around. I think that would be really helpful. So that's a fun kind of offline activity. So when we're talking about knowing people and being known, that's where we want to start. Now, when you're in Thrively, and this is what the Thrively platform looks like, we can really get to know our class. Once they take the strength assessment, I could click on here and I could see all of my students when they're listed in here in my class. And if I have multiple classrooms that I work with, you could search for different classes here. But the great part of this is every student that takes this strength assessment, I could click on their little cards here. Now, these might be students that you know a little bit about, but do you know what their top strengths are? Do you know their aspirations? Do you know what they're doing outside of class or what their interests are? I liken this to looking at when I used to collect baseball cards. You'd see your favorite players and you click on the back of the card to see all their stats, right? You really get to know about that player. And then when you click on the full strengths profile, you'll see that every student that takes this strengths assessment gets this wonderful write-up, tells all this great stuff about them. Not only does it give their top 5 strengths and a little definition of what that is, a kid might say, analytical, is that a good thing? Do I want to be analytical? Well, it gives a little definition why that's a good thing, and then gives this wonderful write-up. So think about this. When's the last time someone just wrote a wonderful, like 3-paragraph essay about how great you were? And in specific detail about the strengths that you had and why that's a good thing. Here's another activity that you could do as a staff and bring it back to your school is, you know, just do an activity where you share one thing with one other person on your staff. This is something this is a strength I see in you, and this is how it's affected me. It's really powerful. But this is a great thing when the kids see this write-up and they get it and they print it out and you show it to them and they're like, oh my gosh, how does Thrively know me so well? And you as a teacher can get to know the student. Even better, you can use something like this to show a parent when you're talking about students during a conference or some other conversation you're having with them. Slide that across the table and say, you know what? This is what we love about your student. this is what we're celebrating. These are his or her strengths. And this is how we're going to build this strengths-based culture in our school. In addition to the Thrivley Strength Assessment, there are several other assessment tools built into Thrivley. Habits of Mind profile, the Midas assessment, an interest profile. See lots of great stuff about kids and some of their aspirations, right? Oh, Anna wants to be maybe an animator or a choreographer, computer programmer. Here's a bunch of her interests. Lots of great stuff that you could see here. I'm going to hop back into this in a minute, but just wanted to kind of give you an overview of how you could see individual students' information. Over here on the left side, there's this Insights tab. See a strength and interest breakdown of your entire school or your homeroom class or whatever class you want to see. And you can see all these strengths in your whole class. How many people do I have that show leadership as a skill? I've got 5 kids. Who are those kids? Allison, she's so quiet. She sits back in the back. She doesn't talk very much. I wouldn't know that she had that leadership quality until I found out from here. And now I could put her in roles where she can show that leadership. You can see all of these different, the interests my students have and what they want to be when they grow up. What kind of learner are they? What kind of habits do they have to excel at school? Right. All right, I'm going to jump back into this presentation. I'm going to go back and forth between the Thrively platform and this deck here, because I want to show you a couple things in here too. Because the next part is, okay, so we understand our students' strengths. We understand what makes them tick. They get to know themselves a little bit better. That is the best start that you can have, right, to this whole journey. But what about them? What do they want now? So they're exploring career pathways, and they can take those things that they said that they like. Oh, I might want to be a dancer or a filmmaker, a financial analyst. Well, in Thrively, students are able to pursue those different things. They're able to check on those things themselves in the platform. So they could jump in here, and like I mentioned, I mentioned Anna. Well, here's Anna. And here's the pathways that she chose, right? Animator, choreographer, computer programmer. Well, she could go explore those in more detail, right? She could go in here and say, oh, what is that job all about, right? And she could say, oh, that sounds really exciting. Let me know more. Oh, there's all these videos here that I can look in the day in the life of an animator and what that person does for a living. That's pretty cool. Not only do we have those pathways for the ones that she chose, but based on the strengths and interests that we find from these assessments, we have recommended pathways that the students can go explore. Oh, I didn't even know this was a thing. Urban planner. That sounds cool. Web developer. And they could go explore each of these things. We have hundreds of these career pathways. Now, when we're going in here and we're talking about the next thing they could do, learning life skills. Right? So how do we as educators help build these good skills in students? Well, we have a number of different ways that we do that in Thrively. We have SEL lessons. So based on aligning with the CASEL core competencies, we partnered with outside resources like the Habits of Mind Institute. So that is the Habits of Mind assessment that I showed you. But this is based on 3 decades of work by Ben Akalik and Art Costa, exploring what these different habits are that can get kids to be successful at life. We also partnered with We Charities and We Charity and their We WellBeing content that they have. So we took all their content, it's up in Thrively too. There's all this great rich content that you could go in and you can give to students. So as they're going through this, you can also take all that content and build it into easily digestible playlists. Here's a whole curriculum basically for SEL for grades 6 to 8. Or here's a CTE program that you can explore 15 different career sectors, those hundreds of different pathways that I talked about, and also essential skills that students are going to need to thrive in the workforce. What does that look like in Thrively? Well, you could go into Thrively and you can see, oh, I've got all of these lessons over here. I could click on those and look at all these lessons I could find. And I could find them by whatever category I want to search for, different grade levels. And the lessons are fun. They're fun and engaging for students, right? As they click on these, they could see, oh, here's a lesson. And we're going to talk about thinking flexibly and how to overcome challenges and determination. The students get an exercise and a way to respond to that. So these exercises, there's a lot of videos. You can see our favorite snowman here.
Hello.
Talking about how he has to overcome some of his own challenges, right? And then for us, we can ask the students these questions. How do we know when how do others know when you're struggling? When others are struggling, who helps you? And the students get a chance to do their own personal reflection. They could type that in, right? They could just type that in here, or they can record and upload their own video. I've heard that kids these days like to record themselves on videos. I don't know, it's becoming a thing, maybe you've heard. They could do audio recordings of themselves and upload that too. The great part of this is whether you're doing this as a whole class activity or whether you're breaking kids up into small groups, the students all still have the chance to do their own personal reflection on whatever that topic is. And what's great about that is you, as an educator, get to see when they have added a journal entry in here that you can respond to it, right? You could see in here, oh, what this great thing that Anna wrote. I really like that. I'm going to give her a gold star, or I'm going to respond back to her, right? Hey, thanks for sharing. Let's try this in class. Lots of ways that you can engage with your students, right? So kind of going back to these lessons can be built into playlists too. So now I could take all this great content that we have and I could build this into playlists that are meaningful. So for instance, you want to end the year on a strong note. You want to give these kids some lessons that are really going to help them and impact them in their daily lives. Well, we already have that for you. Like I mentioned, here's a middle school playlist for all these SEL topics. Oh, I want to go in, I want to learn about stress management, or about goal setting, or, oh my gosh, about visualizing your strengths, all this great stuff in here. Not only do we have those lessons, we have a handy dandy teacher guide built in here with all of the stated goals and outcomes. It's broken down by themes and objectives with offline extension activities. And then all of these lessons are in here just nice and neat, so you can go through, and if you want to assign these to a student, hey, today we're going to talk about helping others and being a good friend, right? Click on that lesson. I can assign that lesson to a student. They could just jump in, participate in this lesson, and give their journal response. I'm finished. And then you'll see your notification up here, right? So some great stuff that we're doing with these lessons and playlists. We have playlists covering all sorts of topics. They could be things on covering STEM, or maybe for your gifted and talented students, or for academic enrichment, or SEL topics, all sorts of great stuff that we have built in here already. All right, let me go back into here. Let's talk a little bit about student engagement. Okay, so we've gotten to know our kids through their strengths. We can show them how their strengths are linked to their future through these career pathways. We're going to show them how we can build up these skills, right? These really essential skills that they need. And then how do we jump in and show how we can increase engagement with students? Well, I'll tell you this, the number one thing that we can do, and we have the data to back that up, is that when students are engaged, they're engaged at school way more often when they have a teacher who knows them and makes them excited about their future. So when we're talking about focusing on strengths, focusing on well-being, Students need to know that someone is there listening to them and is in their corner and rooting for them. And what can we do? We can listen to them. They can be known. We can show them how their passions and interests are important and that there's a path for them. What else can we do? Well, one of the biggest things that I think is exciting, and anytime you're thinking about what an engaged class looks like, I'm guessing you're not picturing rows of students sitting there reading out of a textbook. You're probably thinking about how these kids are engaged in real world projects, how they're collaborating with one another, how they're doing their own research and analyzing data. And so we have lots of different projects built into Thrively. So whether it's a design thinking project where we're building a bridge or doing some kind of experiment, or we're going out in the community and making a difference, or we're exploring our own identity, right? There's some great projects that are built into Thrively. And I can show you what those look like real quick. So when you go into the projects tool, I'm going to show this one because I think it's fun. It's kind of for younger grades, right? But we could click on here. We could see that this particular project, like many of ours, are set up like a design thinking activity, right? We've got discover, ask, imagine, plan, create, test, improve, share. And within each of these topics, there are different activities that the students can participate in. You can also group students into teams, and you can assign them these different activities to do. So this particular activity is kind of fun. It's about the story of the 3 billy goats. And everybody knows the story, right? And if they're not sure, they can watch the video and get reminded of what that is. But then they're asked to talk about the writing process. What is the writing process? Oh, there's pre-writing and activities. There's revising and editing, publishing. So why are we starting off with that? Because the task then is to understand how that is similar to the design process. So when we're introducing kids to the design process, it's kind of cool to see like, oh yeah, I learned back in 2nd and 3rd and 4th grade how to write a story and how to make it meaningful and how to rewrite it and do some editing. Well, that's the same thing with the design process, right? Very similar. And I'm going to go through, and now we're asking the students to do a task. Post similarities that you find and put it in the collaboration feed. So you see on the left-hand side, the students are adding things into this collaboration feed and they're working together as a team. And it's super easy. You just click over here, you type something in, and then you hit post. And as a teacher, you can respond back to these students, right? You can respond individually, or you can just post something to the feed. Students can upload things to this as well. So as they're going through this process and they're asked to presented with this design challenge and identify the problem and then imagine a solution. Well, in this particular design challenge, they're asked to build a bridge to get the goats across to the green grass on the other side. So what do they get? They get some, oh, here's a graphic organizer to kind of ask them, what is that question about? Oh, I could start doing some designs. And look, they can upload that right to this collaboration feed. Everything that they share to the collaboration feed, they can also share in their own digital portfolios. So when we're engaging with kids and we're making this project exciting, right? We're letting them work as a team. They're building collaboration skills. We're letting them project this stuff out here so they're able to share and communicate what they're doing with the rest of their team. We're letting them problem solve, finding solutions on their own, trying some different things out. And you can see as they go through the rest of the activity, they're actually going to create their own things. They're going to take pictures, they're going to upload those pictures, share those onto their digital portfolio. And as they complete each task that you've laid out in here, you can track all that in a handy dandy progress report. Here's all the tasks listed across. Here's the number of messages, the number of artifacts students have uploaded. You can download that whole thing so you have a record of everybody and how they participated in the activity. Right. The other great thing about this project tool is that you could take this project, if you want to use this, you're welcome to use this, and you can even add activities to it. Or you're like, oh, I don't really like this video. I want to edit that, and I want to put a different video in here. right? You can just upload a different video into here. You want a different prompt, extra tasks, you want to scaffold the project to make it more meaningful for your students, you can go ahead and do that as well. Everything in Thrivley is customizable that way. It's pretty cool, all right? So let's take a look now. Now that we've gone through projects, talk a little bit about giving students agency. So we've given them some to be able to go and explore themselves and get to understand themselves and to explore these career pathways and even to explore things that they want to do in these projects. But Thrivley gives them the agency to go in and create their own narratives as well. They all have access to their own digital portfolio. This is where they can really express themselves, like that Karen Pittman video that we were watching, where she was talking about kids need to have their own identity. We need to recognize that and welcome that. Well, here's a great way that they can do that in their own digital portfolios. They could write something about themselves. They can even showcase highlights and achievements that they've had. So if students have certain goals and they get badges for meeting those, we can assign them these great badges. If they have certain things that they're working on and they want to upload highlights to that, we can really see evidence of their learning. So whether it's something from a project they were working on or something, maybe it's an SEL skill that they were focusing on. And we want to make sure that we're seeing that evidence of learning. When I look at Anna, for instance, I always pick on Anna. She's my favorite fake student here. When I go into these digital portfolios of theirs, I can see, oh, here's what Anna wrote up for herself. She has all her assessments in here. She could go back and look at that. She could look at any goals that have been assigned to her, right? Any badges she's been awarded, and you could create those yourself too over here in the badges. Any projects she's participated in, you can see, oh, here's a whole bunch of artifacts that she added to this. So you can really see, oh, here's some great stuff that she added. And you can see that it's something that she can, take pictures of, she can upload PDFs, whatever it is that she wants to put in here. And then here's some highlights. I really like this highlight section because think about this for a second. If you're working on some SEL goals, maybe you're going to end this school year on a high note by, hey, let's all talk about developing empathy. That's the skill that I really want kids to walk away with, or building grit, or one of these things. Well, if developing empathy is one of my goals and I have an action plan, I can have each of my students upload highlights. Here are Anna's highlights. When she was asked to learn about empathy, she might have done some of those lessons that we talked about, maybe even participated in some class projects. But on her own, she's going out and she's doing things like, here's something that she put in, that she spent some time with her grandma to learn more about why she does things the way she does. That's a great thing. Spending some time with our grandparents to really learn about their life and what they were doing. That's a great way to understand the concept of empathy. And then you're reading this as a teacher and you get a chance to write back to her, right? Oh, your grandmother seems like a special person. Sometimes these goals are difficult to kind of nail down. And sometimes teachers are asked to teach these things, and maybe that's not their area of expertise, but all of these things are built into Thrivley to make it very easy for you to engage with your students and to get at these different areas that are important. Now, we talked a lot about strengths, talked a lot about getting to know our students. One of the things that is really important is being able to understand how our students are feeling and functioning, right? We have two different tools that are built into Thrivley, the Thrivley WellBeing Index. This was created in partnership with Turnaround for Children. It takes less than 60 seconds for students to complete. You can do daily check-ins or weekly check-ins and see some trend data over time. We have a second index called the Thrivley Hope Index. This was created in partnership with a woman named Kathleen Beachboard. She's the author of an upcoming book called The School of Hope. She has a fascinating story that everybody should take a look at. She adopted 5 children that came from really, really tough backgrounds. Had experienced a lot of trauma, and she went back and got a psychology degree and really wanted to explore how hope was such a factor in all these powerful learning outcomes, like achieving more academically and more drive to succeed and expressing greater resilience and persistence. And this all has data to back it up. It's kind of fascinating. This is a quarterly assessment that we use for students, and we can also use it for adults. If you want to use this for your staff and really understand, hey, as my staff or my colleagues, how hopeful are they for the future? A lot of people don't want to ask that question, but I think it's really important. Hey, what a great way to end the year to really understand how hopeful are we? What can we do between now and in June when everybody leaves for summer to really help make sure that we're all feeling a little bit more hopeful and that we're feeling cared for? So I'm going to jump into the Wellbeing Index a little bit, but first I want to show this quick video. Gives you a little idea of what the Wellbeing Index is all about.
The brain's capacity to be fully activated happens when children and youth feel emotionally and physically safe. Turnaround for Children and Thrivley have partnered together to bring you the Wellbeing Index. We take attendance every day, yet are our students ready to attend? Positive emotions such as interest and excitement open up the mind to learning when students realize they are part of a supportive environment with deep relationships with their adults. In as little as 60 seconds, you'll get a pulse check on the well-being of each and every learner in your classroom. Self-awareness is developed when well-being data is visualized in a way that makes sense to the learner. Student trend data becomes personalized and contextual. In the data dashboard for staff, relationships engage children in the human community in ways that help them define who they are, what they can become, and how and why they are important to other people. Research points to 3 common elements across settings that contribute to positive emotional development: a supportive environment, developmental relationships, and opportunities for integrated academic, skill, and mindset development. If a school creates the conditions for healthy, whole child development, we expect students to build skills and mindsets for success. We want students to believe in their capacity to learn and to be able to connect, communicate, and collaborate, as well as manage themselves and direct their actions. The power of the interactive tools in Thrively allows students to communicate clearly, cooperate with others, resist inappropriate social pressures, negotiate conflict constructively, and seek the guidance and help of others when needed. Let's move beyond attendance and attend to our students' well-being.
So when you go into the Thrively platform, this is what the dashboard looks like for the Wellbeing Index. Jump in here real quick, and this is how you see it as a teacher. You'll see this up here, well-being. You see there's a 1 up here. That means there's been a student, 1 additional student that has completed the Wellbeing Index. And this little exclamation point means that that person might need some attending to, that they had some low scores on their, when they did that. So let's see, let's look at all students, and we could see, oh, here's Ava, right? And I could click on her and I could see this is what she put in. These are the questions that she was asked. And again, this is a daily check-in. It takes less than 60 seconds for the kids to go through, and you could see how they could slide that little bar across the continuum with a smiley and frowny face. And they're asked questions like, I've been active and thinking clearly, been hopeful about the future, feeling heard by others, waking up feeling rested, getting along with others, being relaxed, feeling accepted for who I am, been dealing with problems well, engaged in my daily activities, and feeling cared for about by others. I've been in a good mood. They get 12 questions. The younger kids get 6 questions. and it gives them these scores on their feeling, functioning, and well-being. And if those scores are low, if they're in this red range, then there's that alert that I showed you with the exclamation point up there. And they also have a chance to write a text message. Hey, struggling with my peers, can we connect? As a teacher, you might see that, and there might be something that you can involve yourself with right away. You might be able to kind of take care of a situation that's coming up. But the other thing that you might see is, you might see, hey, I've got these students in my advisory class. Maybe I want to look at this one student. Maybe I do want to look at, one kid in particular in my homeroom class, and I want to say, oh, how is Ava doing? Let's go find Ava, or Anna, I mean. And I could see over the school year, how has her trend been? Now, if I see she's usually up high and then all of a sudden she dips down low, what's going on? What can I glean from that? As a counselor, as a teacher, when is it appropriate for me to intervene and check in on that student? But it's just such a great tool, because you could see this data over time. You could share it out so the administrators can see it, the counselors can see it, and you could get this up to the minute data on students. And you'll see their notifications pop up too. Hey, I had someone that responded to the well-being, right? Here's a comment. Hey, how are you feeling today? Mad at my friend, sad about what happened at lunch, right? The teacher could just, be there to show that they're listening. But you can also monitor this for something that might be more serious. As far as the HOPE survey, it's very similar how it's administered, except instead of daily, it's just done on a quarterly basis, right? Maybe beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. And we really want to just check in and see, how hopeful are my students for the future? This is a great way to check in with both students and, like I mentioned, with your staff as well. Lots of great data that comes out of that. There is a landing page I could send you to that has some videos and some other information on there. Some really great stuff. So today we are talking about 6 different topics. How can we focus on strengths and well-being, and how can we end the year on a positive note? Right? We talked about being known. So how can Thrivley help with being known? Well, by having your students take the Thrivley Strength Assessment. Anyone can take that. Anyone right now, any of you, even if you don't have an account right now, you could sign up for a free Thrivley account, and you can have your students go in and take the Thrivley Strength Assessment. You can use one of the strategies, that user guide that I talked about, to say, like, okay, let's celebrate these strengths and talk about ourselves and be known to our classmates and to our teachers, and get to know ourselves a little bit better. Okay? Strategy number 1. Number 2 is connecting passions to the future. So we talked about how students can go in and, based on their strength assessment, they could choose their own interests and their own career pathways they want to explore. But at the same time, Thrivley gives them a whole bunch of recommended pathways they could go look at, or they could go look at any of the hundreds of different careers that are on there. If you wanted to build this into a more robust CTE program in your school, we could show you how to do that as well. So there's the lessons and everything that go along with that if you want to build that out in a more explicit manner. The third thing, learning life skills. How can we make these interactive lessons and reflective journals come alive for students, to teach them some of those things that are going to be really important for them to be successful at life? Hey, maybe we want to teach them about like resilience and grit and persistence and all these wonderful things that we talked about, or time management skills or goal setting. What are the things that your school needs right now, and how can that make an impact on these students' well-being as you finish out the rest of the school year? Increasing student engagement. That's going to come, just like I said, from making sure that they are being heard, that the students understand that you're there, But then how can we be like really exciting in the classroom by doing passion projects and some of those other projects that I showed you, where they're doing hands-on collaborative work with their peers. They're able to share out the great work that they're doing, and they're having the chance to go and explore on their own. The fifth thing was giving students their own agency and voice. How can they express themselves in their own way? Our digital portfolios, I kind of liken them to like a LinkedIn meets Pinterest for students, right? How can you put up all the cool stuff that you do? Hey, they have this whole life outside of school and in the summer and these great things that they're involved with. As a teacher, wouldn't it be wonderful to see all of this stuff about the students so you really get to know the whole child? That's going to inform you on decisions, how you're going to teach them, and just get to understand them a little bit better. And one of the most important things are these new Wellbeing Index and Hope Index that Thrively has. The Wellbeing Index can be used on a daily basis to check in on the well-being of your students. You can see how are they feeling and functioning. Are they ready to attend school, right? Are they ready to learn? How are they doing? And that's really our jobs. We're teaching these little humans, right? We're not teaching content. We're teaching humans. We're teaching these kids, and we really want to make sure that they're in the best position to succeed. We need to make sure that they're doing okay. And the Hope Index really gives us an even broader kind of longer term vision of the hopefulness of these students looking into the future, and for your staff as well. All right, I'm going to stop sharing for a second here. We did have a Google form that I put in the chat. So if anybody wants to fill that out, that's at the top of the Google form in the chat there. I can save that, oops, and put that back down at the bottom here. But if you wanted to do that, if you want to fill that out, you can go ahead and I can offer you a free Thrively Pro license for the rest of the school year. But what I wanted to get from you, we got just a few minutes here, is any questions about Thrively, about how it can be used to impact your students for the remainder of the school year, or starting off fresh at the beginning of the school year in the fall. Any thoughts from anyone out there?
I have one question. And we actually, my name's Jody. I'm in District 21. So we already have an account, a subscription with you.
Yeah.
But our 8th graders are about to start their career unit. And I've just been poking around and I was listening to you. I am a technology coach. Is there any slides or any kind of, where would I look to get started with that? You know what I mean? Like if I want to show the teachers, or I don't know if maybe you're available or something like that to help us get started.
Yeah, so one of the things we're doing with your district is we're going to be building that out for next year for sure. But let me show you what you can do right now, this during this school year. Oops. Let me show you where you can go in here. So when you are in Thrively, and if you're looking for one of these playlists, which is great, is this Thriving CTE playlist. Right? And if you should have that, but if not, send me an email. I'll make sure that you get your hands on it and you can find it easily. But what this playlist does, so just like I said, I was taking a bunch of lessons and content. You can add anything you want into a playlist and you can modify them yourselves. We built some already for you. So Thriving CTE, what does this have in here? Well, first it has 15 different areas that you can go explore, right? Of these different career sectors. Well, I want to explore the agriculture sector, right? Agriculture and natural resources. Well, here's a sector. You can click on this link and you can explore these different careers that are involved in that. And then there's a couple different exercises you can go through. It's the future of agriculture and natural resources. What are some interesting job options, right? So that particular playlist goes from big, right, from these big career sectors, and it covers, I mean, there's pretty much every career sector is covered of these 15, right? Then with each of those career sectors, there's individual pathways. So for each career sector, there's 4 specific careers that are involved with each of those. And then as you get down to the bottom here, there's all of these different lessons. And these lessons are lessons that any student needs, depending, and it doesn't matter what career they're going into, what are those essential skills those students need? Now, this is difficult to follow, so we built this teacher guide for you here. And in the teacher guide, you can see that we've outlined the different industry sectors and each of these career pathways that the students can explore. So it's just a little bit easier for them to find, right? Oh, I'm into building and construction. I like working with my hands. Oh, electrician, plumber, structural engineer, crane tower operator, right? So all of these that they could go explore. But then when you get down to these lessons, you get in here and you say, oh, here's essential skills: strength, leadership, character. These are going to be important when I'm teaching my career text unit, that I want to make sure that students have these leadership characteristics or collaborative skills or communication skills, right? So similar to the SEL playlist I showed you, the CTE one has all of these lessons built in here to help them. Hey, we really need some critical thinking skills, or we need some mindfulness skills, right? So that would be one place to start. And then also on the pathways on the left-hand side, you can click on that and see all of these different career pathways. And each student has their own pathways that they've already kind of thought through, that they've chosen. And then they have ones that they've been recommended because of their strengths and interests.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Anybody else? What is anybody else? Maybe I'll ask this. What is anybody else doing between now and the end of the year to end their school year on a strong note? What are you doing? What are you looking forward to besides the day when you get to leave school and go on summer vacation? What are the things that you're looking forward to in the next 8 to 10 weeks? You can drop it in the chat. You can take yourself off mute, talk. But what are those things that you're really looking forward to? Anybody out there? Well, I'm looking forward to working with a couple districts that I'm working with right now to do some of these things. We're just talking to District 21 and talking about how we're going to really build out this program so that we're aligning their SEL goals and aligning their CTE goals with each different grade level for 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade for their middle schoolers. That's going to be some fun, exciting work for us to do. And they've already started delving into it by taking the strength assessment and jumping into some of these SEL plans already. I've got some other districts that are starting to use a well-being index for the first time this past month, and they're getting all this great data. Just had a wonderful meeting with an SEL team from a charter school network and talked about the great information that they're gathering from this and why didn't we have this before. So some really fun stuff that we're involved with. And my favorite are the projects, building out these projects for students to engage in and really get excited about school, seeing those looks on their faces when they're like, oh yeah, this is the fun part. So let me know if there's anything I can help with. I encourage you to fill out the Google form that we have here in the chat. If you have any questions at all after this, you can reach me at mike@thrively.com.